All right, I'm going through every position group on LSU's football team as we get ready for fall camp, which is approaching rapidly. It'll be here a week from today. And I talked about tight ends on LouisianaSports.net today. Now, the reasonable suggestion in general terms, when you lose the most productive player in the history of the school at any position in any sport, you would suggest, okay, probably going to take a big step back there. Like if you've got the greatest pitcher in the history of LSU baseball, like that's going to be tough to replace. You got the greatest three-point shooter in the history of LSU basketball, that's going to be tough to replace. You go to gymnastics and you've got the greatest vaulter in the history of the school, like that's going to be tough to replace. And Mason Taylor is the most productive tight end in the history of LSU football. You're well aware of that now. He holds the record for most career receptions. That's 129, and most career yards receiving. That's 1,308 in LSU football history among tight ends. And so you got to replace him, and that feels like a monumental task. But I talked about this in the spring, and I still believe it as we sit here in the late summer as fall approaches. I think LSU is going to replace that quite adequately. When you look at what you got from the tight end position last year, that was Mason Taylor with a little bit of Kamorian Pimpton and a little bit of Tradez Green. That trio, which was obviously dominated by Taylor, who played the vast majority of the snaps. But that trio came up with a combined total of 726 yards and 4 touchdowns. I would suggest, as I sit here today, that Tradez Green, Bauer Sharp, and Donovan Green will equal 726 yards and 4 touchdowns. Do you realize, and this is a little bit more of chance instead of consistent production, but last year, Mason Taylor had 2 touchdown catches. Tradez Green had 2 touchdown catches in the bowl game when Mason Taylor opted out. Mason Taylor, I am not by any stretch of the imagination sullying his career at LSU. It was brilliant. He stepped on the field as a true freshman, was ready to play, made the biggest catch of the season in overtime, beat Alabama. He rolled up records. He was awesome for 3 years. He was a model teammate, model classmate, goes in the second round of the NFL draft. Like, that is a remarkably good career. And I'm not trying to dampen that in any way. But I am going to point out that Mason Taylor is 6'5", 250. He runs a 4.65 40. He did it pro day. That would have been second among tight ends in the combine. But he's not like what you would call some sort of matchup nightmare. He's not someone you just can't replace. Like, to go back to the analogy I just used with the most productive such and such in school history, it's hard to replace Paul Skeen's 101-mile-an-hour fastball. Like, the next guy's just not going to have that. You look at some of the traits of some of the elite players, like, you're not going to replace Jaden Daniels' 1,000 yards of rushing just with the next guy. Like, that's really hard to do when there's a skill set that someone has that's just not very easy to find. Guys that are 6'5", 245, 250, and run a 4.6, like, you can find one of those on every SEC team. Now, Mason runs great routes. He has phenomenal hands. I don't remember many drops at all from Mason Taylor. He blocked well and found spaces in defenses, worked the intermediate part of the field very well. He did all the things that you want a tight end to do. But he doesn't have any skill that Bauer Sharp athletically doesn't have. Tradez Green is significantly more gifted physically than Mason Taylor is. And so while I would argue that Bauer Sharp has not been nearly as productive as Mason Taylor, and that's an easy argument to make in Oklahoma's terrible passing game, and Tradez Green does not have the ability yet as a run blocker like Mason Taylor did, even though Mason Taylor was an elite run blocker, he was certainly better than Tradez Green. He's a more complete player, a more polished player than the two that LSU will feature this year. I wouldn't suggest that LSU's guys this year cannot do anything that Mason Taylor did over the last 3 years. Tradez Green gives LSU a weapon in the passing game that I don't think there is a single defensive player that is a great matchup for Tradez Green. There is not, I can say this without looking it up and with confidence. LSU's not going to face a secondary player this year that's 6'7", 245 pounds, and can jump well enough to play SEC basketball. That guy doesn't exist. Not on Alabama's team, Not on Ohio State's team if LSU gets to them. Not on Clemson's team. Like, that guy. So just by the nature of his stature and athleticism, he's a matchup problem for everyone. And I think that shined through when he got his chance to play and they didn't have an option of going to Mason Taylor. I mean, you look at the snap counts last year between Mason Taylor and Tradez Green, like, it was 862 to 191. Like, it's 4-1. Mason Taylor's, and that's fine. Like, that, it should have been. Mason Taylor's a great player. But, like, Tradez Green played 191 snaps last year. Chris Hilton played 144. Like, those were comparable numbers. Chris Hilton was hurt the whole year. Mason Taylor just dominated the snap count. When Tradez Green got his chance to play in the bowl game, because they didn't have Mason Taylor, he opted out. 6 catches, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns against Dave Aranda's defense. Like, I'm not telling you he's going to catch 15 scores this year. But I am telling you that Garrett Nussmeier is very comfortable throwing the ball to the tight end. We know that. He did it all last year to Mason Taylor. And he's got a weapon at tight end that he knows is there. And all due respect to the safeties and linebackers in the SEC, like, good luck with this dude. I think Tradez Green is going to be more impactful in terms of, like, big plays, like big third downs and big touchdowns, than he's going to be a 1,300-yard receiver. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think that they've got what they know is a rare weapon, and they're going to use it. And I think Bauer Sharp at 6'5", 245, who's a really good athlete, is also going to have a nice year. This is Brian Kelly's offense. This is a guy that put tight end after tight end after tight end at Notre Dame into the NFL. Michael Mayer, Cole Kmet. I mean, these are the type of guys that he continued to churn out. Tyler Eifert in the early years. And that position, it's not a coincidence that he showed up and Mason Taylor just exploded into the record books. And they're still going to use this. So there are some question marks on this team. There are some guys LSU has to replace. I talked the last 2 days in this segment about how tough it's going to be to replace the tackles and the guards. And I said in those segments, like, it's probably going to be a step back. Like, how big the step back is will tell the tale. If the tackle is just a touch of a step back in pass pro, you're fine. If you fall off a cliff, you're in big trouble. The guards are probably not going to be quite as accomplished as Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier. But if it's a small step back, you're okay. At tight end, I don't think there is a step back. Like, I don't. I think LSU at tight end is really good. And I think it's a healthy position group because Tradez Green has another year after this. Bauer Sharp will move on. But Donovan Green, who you brought in from Texas A&M, who was their newcomer of the year 3 years ago and missed a year with an ACL injury and then didn't play very much last year. Like, he's big and physical, 6'4", 250. He can get in there in goal line sets and in short yardage sets and block for you a little bit. And then you bring in J.D. LaFleur, who coincidentally, it's a great coincidence, times a funny thing. Mason Taylor was a second-round pick as a tight end. That's the highest any tight end at LSU's gone since J.D. LaFleur's dad in 1997. So it's J.D. LaFleur comes in 6'7", 255, and he comes up with a football pedigree. A dad that played in the NFL, was a first-round pick. Like, he'll know what he's doing, and he'll be ready to go. So next year, I'm already looking at a tight end group that, yes, you'll have lost Bauer Sharp, but you'll have Tradez Green, you'll have Donovan Green, you'll have J.D. LaFleur. That's healthy. And Brian Kelly's going to have a healthy tight end room as long as he's here at LSU. So, again, conventional wisdom would suggest, like, hey, you lost the best in the history of the school in terms of production. Probably a big step back. Like Will Campbell, you lose him. I don't think so at tight end. I think LSU's tight ends quite easily go over 800 yards, quite easily go over 4 touchdowns. You've got a really good quarterback. You've got big-time talent, and you've got a matchup problem at tight end that I think defensive coordinators are going to have to look at every single week and pay attention to. Because if you just stick a linebacker on him, that's a nightmare. You just kind of have a safety, keep an eye on him, that's a nightmare. Baylor found that out. He's big, he's strong, he can jump, and he's got really good hands. And all you got to do is turn on that play from Tuscaloosa on the hardwood where he blocked a shot, ran it down, ran out on a one-man fast break, and threw down a dunk. Like, there just aren't a lot of tight ends in the SEC or in college football, period, that can make that play on an SEC basketball floor against one of the best teams in the country in Alabama. Like, he's a freak. and he needs to be used as such. Last year, you didn't have to rush him to the field. You could put some weight on him, try to help him out in the blocking game, but you had a guy that was perfectly content playing 95% of the snaps, and Mason Taylor just about did. But LSU, we saw in spring, they're going to put 2 tight ends out there. Sharp and Green are going to play at the same time. They're going to be physical. They're going to throw the ball to them. I think that the tight ends are going to be a huge part of this offense, even in Mason Taylor's absence. So I'm very bullish on LSU's tight end group as a whole this season in their production, even though you've lost one of the best to do it in the purple and gold. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.